Roy and Dogville. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's why we're here, right?
You know, and so.
I believe you did call the meeting to order.
Oh, okay.
The meeting is now called to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Will Carson,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
Present.
Councilmember Somerville,
Present.
Mayor Richardson, Councilmember Simmons, Mr. Chance. Four present, we have a quorum.
I move to excuse,
The move to properly second, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. The motion is passed. They are excused. Okay, agenda approval. Oh, I'm sorry, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We are now open for audience participation, public comment. If there's anyone that's like to speak during 3 minutes, please come to the mic.
Agenda approval.
Oh, I did, okay, agenda approval, thank you. Pause it, then move back, and then switch over.
I move to approve the agenda. Support.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion, our ayes have it. And now we're open for public comment. Okay. Seeing none, let's move on. We are here tonight to interview the applicants for the Ward 3 vacancy seat. And we have 3 people that have applied: Ashante Harris, Evan Sweet, and Kirk Crowner. And we have both Ashante and Evan here with us. Mr. Byer, in the past, have we interviewed one by one and asked other interviewees to wait outside?
Yes, Your Honor, that's been the process.
All right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Harris was here and she's paid on our list. So, Mr. Evan Sweet, would you mind sitting outside? Of course. Thank you. You can sit right here at the table. We need to close the door, Mr. Byer.
Yeah, that's the here.
I wouldn't close the door, but you could perhaps close the door for comments.
Yeah, okay.
They picked the rainbow, I said, rainbow could be for those.
You say they kicked the rainbow out?
They took the rainbow out of the steeple so they could be used for fire.
Interesting.
And put a little thing on the back of the thing.
So you can guess which one's left.
There's one later, probably, yeah, sure. Why I know so much about school.
You've invested in it?
No, somebody had some, and I looked at it, it looked like split seat.
Thanks, Steve, for the insight.
No, just a well.
Okay, let's, How we're going to do this here is each council person has 2 questions for you. And they will give their questions and then, you'll read the questions and then, give you time to answer. Then we'll come back. after the next. And we'll do 1 question at a time. And I'm gonna start with Mayor Pro Tem. Please, the first.
Sure. Good evening, Ms. Chauncey.
Good evening.
So given this seat is being filled by vote of council rather than your constituents, how do you plan to represent Ward 3? That's part 1. That is, where do you find yourself on the spectrum between representing the opinions of your constituents versus representing your own opinions? What do you do when those 2 are not congruent?
One more time, please.
Yes. Given that this seat is being filled by the vote of council rather than your constituents, how do you plan to represent Ward 3? Where do you find yourself on the spectrum between representing the opinions of your constituents versus representing your own opinions? What do you do when those 2 are not congruent?
Thank you. So I really do feel my role at city council is to represent Ward 3 and to be able to talk to them and determine what their community issues are. I live in Ward 3, so I would think that a lot of those, as I've gone around and talked to staff, are similar. Oh, thank you. Are similar. So I think it's very important, but I have found that even from Cross Street to Maple and so forth, the concerns of the community are very different. So the best thing I can do is listen, determine and share and have discussions, especially when mine are different. But the overall is to represent Ward 3 and bring those issues to the forefront.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Simon.
Hello. Given the short duration of this appointment and the typical learning curve for a new council member, how do you see your role differently than if this were a full term? What will you focus on?
Good question. So it is a very short term and things don't happen quickly. There's lots of discussions and I'm very much a supporter of gathering data and using facts to make decisions. So I really think that during this time is continuing to talk to Ward 3 members and get their opinions on the things that are already before council and build up a communication plan around that. And basically my top priorities would probably be most definitely things that have a shortened timeline because I don't want to slow down the process. I want us to keep moving forward. So that means I have to be very proactive with talking to community members in Ward 3 so that I don't slow down the progress that council has already put into place.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Good. How will you communicate effectively with constituents?
That's a good question. So a lot that I've heard is around the role of communication, and I'm still working through that truthfully. You have some people that are on Facebook, some people that come to these meetings and participate either through public comments or sending messages to their council member. I think there has to be some type of centralized way to communicate, and I'm not quite sure what that is at the time. I think that's information I need to gather from Ward 3. And a big part is going to be having regular meetings. And what does that look like? If it's monthly, bi-monthly, but we have to put something in place. I don't think, speaking to some people, it'll necessarily fit the bill, but I think I have to try and I think I have to ask that question specifically. And I'm really big based on the work that I do on surveys and data gathering. So that's the first point, because I could see going down a path that just isn't helpful to the community.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next question is, and this is a yes or no answer. The writer of this question wanted it to be, do you support access to safe abortion care? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. And back to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. What do you believe are the three greatest strengths and also the three greatest areas in need of improvement for the city of Ypsilanti?
Question. I think the biggest strength is the community members themselves. I think the way they gather around issues and participate is very important on topics that are important to them. They really, I think, do a lot of, I guess you could call it grassroots, but they're involved in the community and they want to be. And I see those events and meetings happening. And I think that's really the people of Ypsilanti are their biggest strength, is our biggest strength. We're also doing a lot on, obviously bringing people to the city and making things affordable for them, whether it be housing, jobs, or like you just got the grant for the solar rebate. And then, of course, the Water Street exit. So we're moving in the right direction. I think we just have to continue in that. So that's definitely people just participating and pushing things forward is Ypsilanti's strength in relationships. The second part of it is the negative
The greatest areas in need of improvement.
communication. Definitely, I think we have to figure out the best way to communicate with the largest component of our cities, and I think that starts at the ward level. Each of us doing our part to bring together. So definitely, I think communication is going to be something to be worked on. Definitely, there's still more to do with the affordable housing. And I'm trying to really just safety in general. And I think it's different between the wards on what that means to them. So I think it's just looking at and continuing discussions around safety and how, whether that be gun or robbery or other types of things, and definitely around children. I just think that that's definitely an area to continue to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Somerville.
Explain your understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you see these interplay in Ypsilanti.
So diversity is definitely the different groups, whether it be races, during race, gender, sexual orientation, they say age, but definitely age, and I mean that on both regards. I think Ward 3 does have a wide range of diversity in terms of age groups and also renters versus homeowners, and I think that's excellent. But it is definitely a diverse background that we have. Equity and inclusion. So understanding equity, that not everyone has the same opportunities as other people. So we need to be sure that we include them in the decisions that we're making and have things available and services available to them. And I believe that in any decision that we make, we have to look at these three areas and just be sure we're taking them into consideration as we make decisions for the city.
Did you touch on equity?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. I didn't do that. Okay, thank you.
Question number 7.
You have number 7.
What does public service mean to you?
Public service means to me is representing the people in my community. And that's what I'd be doing with Ward 3. It's going outside of just my own needs, but looking at the needs of the community overall. Being an advocate, being available and accessible to the people in my community. And then also understanding that there are going to be hard decisions to make and being honest and upfront with the community members about that.
Thank you. Number 8, in your opinion, what is the most important issue facing our citizens?
I am, strict question, I have a few things running through my mind for the city, but I am going to kind of stay on the theme of your last meetings about the affordable housing. We have to stay on top of that and continue to get input from our community as we move forward with the plan. So I think that's really important. And I think it's bigger than just the 3 things, 3 locations that you voted on at the last council meeting. I think it's just a continuous of looking at the city and being sure that it's open and available for people to come and be successful in our city. And that's what I love to see happen.
Thank you.
How familiar and up to date are you on city issues currently?
So truthfully, I did a huge, I was one of those people on Zoom that kind of listened in the background and looked for something that I felt directly affected me. So I am definitely understanding that I need to see the bigger picture and go outside of my own environment. So I would say that I am knowledgeable, but I have a long way to go. You'll also just know I'm a huge supporter for continuous education and learning and training opportunities. So I say that with the understanding that I think this is going to be ongoing, seeking help, and I definitely reach out to yourselves and the community to be supportive.
Thank you. Ms. Somerville.
All right, why do you want to be on city council at this time?
I've wanted to be involved in different areas of the city since I moved here. I'm a Washtenaw County born and raised, and I moved to Ypsilanti 6 years ago, bought a homeowner, and went through, debt that you had as a younger person and how to get your credit together. It was definitely a hard work to get it, but Ypsilanti was the city I wanted to be in. And when the opportunity came for the opening, I really felt as if I could provide a service by really listening. Relationship building is important to me. And I felt as if when listening to my neighbors, community members, I felt as if I could be a good advocate for them. And I was willing to do that. I felt it was important. I love Ypsilanti, and I just really want to put that across to others and build it as much as possible. And this seemed a good opportunity for me to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Interesting question. What was the best day of your life?
Oh. Oh. I had so many good days.
No, right? It's like,
Yeah, I definitely think the good has outweighed the bad, even though the bad at sometimes has been pretty bad. But what is it the greatest or?
oh, what was the best day of your life?
As I said, there's so many best days, but I will say, since I'm sitting before the council today, that the best day was signing the papers for my home in Depot Town. That was, it was a lot of work that went into that, quite a few years of working with the bank and my realtor and family, just to be able to have that dream. So I'm gonna go with that one, since this is where I am today.
That's a good one. Hey, you don't become homeowners every day. Right. What are your opinions about the city's current zoning structure?
I'm going to say that I'm not knowledgeable enough to answer that at this moment in time. If there was more to that, but I just don't feel as if I could give an answer that would be helpful to my board. So I'm going to have to pass on that one.
Thank you. Well, Ms. Harris, that is the last of our questions. Is there anything you would like to say to us?
I would just like to share that I am very excited to have the opportunity to perhaps work with you and be a part of Ypsilanti Ward 3 in this way. I am also gathering petition signatures for the November election because it is important to me. I don't know that there is enough time in a vacancy to do as much as might be needed, but I'd like to have an impact and help with moving things along. And so I just would love to take part with you and share my knowledge with you and with Ward 3. It's a good community.
Thank you. And do any of the other council members have any last words or questions?
I have a follow-up question. So for question number 8, around the most important issue you referenced, affordable housing, and I kind of referenced a few projects that we've recently approved. Can you be a bit more specific on your thoughts on those? So specifically, what are your thoughts on 220 North Park?
How to process. In general, I'm very supportive of the work and having affordable housing and 220 North Park. I am very much appreciative of the work that the Community Ordinance Committee did to move things forward and the input that they gave. I don't think it's perfect. As we know, I don't know that there'll ever be something that is perfect, but I think I wish there was a little bit more time. But in talking to people and trying to understand a little bit more about this, I do know that sometimes things are in place a lot earlier than I might have been aware of, and that a lot of hard work went into making these decisions. So, and I didn't participate in those. And I think that's very important to me, that even though I don't perhaps agree with the overall picture, I also recognize that I didn't participate in the discussions that led up to it. So I think that instead we are moving forward. So we need to just make the best decisions going forward and support what has already been decided.
Okay, thank you very much. We will interview the other candidate that is here. And if you would like to wait, Ms. Thomas will show you where you can wait.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity.
And thank you for applying. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, I know, right?
they got council there, right?
Snacks, charcuterie.
Speak.
Hi there.
Sorry,
Hello. Good. How are you all?
good, doing good.
Good.
We got a series of a list of 12 questions.
Okay.
That we're going to ask you.
Okay.
And we will take notes. And hopefully, we will have an answer before we go tonight.
Okay.
We'd like to wait around.
Sounds good.
Okay. Start with you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, hi, Evan, good evening. So given that this seat is being filled by a vote of council rather than your constituents, how do you plan to represent Ward 3? Where do you find yourself on the spectrum between representing the opinions of your constituents versus your own opinions? And what do you do when those two are not congruent? I know that was a three-part question. So if you, I can like.
Can you just repeat the first part of it?
So the first part is, pardon me, given that this seat is being filled by a vote of council rather than your constituents, how do you plan to represent Ward 3? And the latter is basically, you know, how do you differentiate between your opinions and the opinions of your constituents, and what do you do when they are not congruent?
Okay. So I really do plan to listen to the residents and folks around me. I do have a pretty strong network of neighbors, both like very adjacent and also in the surrounding neighborhood area that I keep up with on a regular basis. There's also been a lot of turnover too in the area that I'm at, so I try to keep up with folks that are new coming into the neighborhood. Some people have questions. I help kind of organize a neighborhood Facebook page. I kind of moved into the neighborhood. We started planning block parties that I led. I had to go door to door, visit people, talk to them. So also living next to a tot lot too, I get a lot of questions, and being on the Parks and Rec Commission about what's happening with the tot lot and projects, and I try to relay those to city staff. So I feel like I would do a good job in kind of communicating issues, concerns, frustrations from residents, both good and bad also as well, and kind of getting those to the proper folks so they can get handled, and then representing, you know, the residents in Ward 3 based on, you know, their views. And I think to the other part of your question about when our views don't align, I think that there's a lot of times, right, we're not always, there's more than one opinion, we're not always going to be correct in every single thing. And I think making sure that I'm really listening and understanding and knowing that, one, there's going to be compromise, and two, there's going to be times that, you know, I'm not correct and they're correct, and I need to relay the information that is, you know, if this majority wants this, I need to focus on what the majority wants and not what I want. It's not about me. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this, I think, for the betterment of the residents, and especially those folks in the ward that I'm in and in the city as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sarver.
Okay.
Okay, given the short duration of this appointment and the typical learning curve for a new council member, how do you see your role differently than if this were a full term? What would you focus on?
I think for me, I have been to a couple of council meetings, and I think being involved with the Parks and Rec Commission has given me a good insight as to some operations of the city. I've definitely been one to review council packets to see what's happening and then keep up with what's occurring in the city. I think that there obviously is going to be a learning curve, but I do think, having worked in local municipal government, that I have a good understanding of how the operation works. Every city is different, obviously, but how things typically function in a government organization such as this. And some things that I would focus on specifically in the short term would be increased communication. I think that there are avenues to get increased information to residents, whether that's through social media, which I think has been increasing, and also just increasing what the city is communicating to the public. I know recently with the onboarding of a communications manager, there's been a broader scope of the city newsletter, and I think more things added to it, but I think there could be other opportunities to work with partner organizations to really increase what's happening in and around the city, so people are aware and can kind of get information from that.
Thank you. Mr. Wilhouse.
Nice segue. How will you communicate effectively with constituents?
I think it's being real and being upfront. There's gonna be tough conversations that may have to be had. But I think being real and sharing, information that, I'm able to share with them, let them know what's happening, to be upfront with them, to bring their concerns to the table and to follow up. I think that's a big thing too, is people say a lot of things to you or about what their suggestions are, bringing those suggestions and then being able to follow up on them and say, hey, this is what I did about it. This is what's happening. This is what's not happening. And this is the reason why. I think that goes a long way, even if it's not the answer that everyone wants, being able to get that closure and knowing that you tried to put in the effort to get a resolution or solution. So I think that means, if that means scheduling time to meet with people, if that means making a phone call to someone, if that means, shooting out mass email to 6 people that were interested in a park cleanup or interested in this, a certain service not happening. I think that just needs to happen. That's part of the responsibility of the position. It doesn't end when business hours are over. I think you all obviously know that as well. So I think being honest and open and available is huge.
Thank you. Do you support access to safe abortion care? This is a yes or no answer.
100% yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
What do you believe are the 3 greatest strengths and also the 3 greatest areas in need of improvement for the city of Ypsilanti?
That's a good question. I think one of the greatest strengths is kind of one that can be unchanged. I think it's the location where the city's physically situated. And I think the amenities that come with that too. So having the river that flows through, the abundant park space along the river, the historic, downtown areas, Ecotown, downtown. I think that is a huge asset to the city to have those available. That's not something that's you get too much of, I feel like, anymore. In a lot of newer communities. So I think that's number one. I think the second greatest strength would be, I think the community involvement. I think that living here and seeing how much and how interested people are in doing things that I think in other places they wouldn't do. Having grown up in a different city and working for a different city right now, township right now, the dynamic and difference from residents here compared to those places is much different. The activism to be involved in things they care about, to help with projects that other places, the city or the entity might do for them. People are willing to step up and do those things and fulfill those needs and services. So that's number 2. And I think the third one would be, and this is probably biased from my experience kind of being involved in the Parks and Rec Commission for several years, but I think is the staff. I think that there's a lot of dedicated and put together folks on the staff that you have currently that have been here for a while, a long time. They're very dedicated to what they do, and I think have a really passionate interest in really serving the residents and getting things done that need to get done with limited resources. Weaknesses, I think one that sticks out, I think, to a lot of people is the financial situation. I think, knowing that having to be very aware of the budget and not to overspend and make sure things are properly allocated and funded that need to be funded, and working with limited funding resources for sure. Second would be, I think that the city is kind of landlocked and doesn't have a lot of room, right? You're not building a lot of new houses in certain areas. There's some development that maybe could happen in certain areas, but for the most part, it's pretty built out. There's not a lot of resource room for new homes to be added to the tax rolls. And then also you have the university that takes up a significant portion of land as well too. So I think that tends to sometimes hurt the city. And then I think the third would be infrastructure. That includes roads, parks, city-owned facilities. I think that that currently is a weakness and something that hopefully can be, worked towards as things progress. And there's already been some progress, but I think continuing enhancing those will be a huge asset.
Thank you.
Explain your understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion and how you see these interplay in its land.
So for me, that's kind of there's a lot to that, obviously, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. The first thing that comes to my mind is that providing things that don't make everyone necessarily equal, but bring folks up to where they need to be. So if someone is already at a certain point or threshold, for example, they might not need as much assistance as someone else. So I think knowing that part of it is very important. That some folks and some residents are going to need more guidance, more help, whether that's financial assistance, housing assistance, food assistance, whatever that may be. There's always going to be people that are in need more than others. And I think knowing that and being able to probably allocate, funding and services to those that are most in need. And then being able to take, as a city, a strong stance on certain things, whether that be for Pride celebrations, whether that be for Black History Month, whether that's Black Lives Matter movement. I think being able to take a stand that your residents support, I think which the city has done. I think that that is also a huge part of DE&I and what that means to the residents that live here and seeing themselves represented in city government, represented in being comfortable in the community they live, work, and play in is huge. And seeing the city and the city support those efforts. And then also making sure that there's breaking down barriers to access when possible, to make sure that folks that want to be included and accessible in things, whether that be an accessible playground or having accessibility to a public meeting. I think having those options to folks to make sure that those are things that they can do if they want to do them.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
What does public service mean?
I think public service for me, pretty much what I do professionally as well is, I do it for other people. I'm not in it for myself. I want to help other people accomplish, their goals, needs, get basic services. I think that it's very exciting, I guess, for me is the word, to be able to have a capacity and work in a position where you have the opportunity to make an impact on someone's life directly. I think not everyone has the opportunity to do that. And when you do, I think it's, doing it right, being tactful about the decisions that you're making and knowing that they're going to affect a broader scope than just the people immediately around you and yourself. So it's big picture for me. It's not about me again. It's not about, everyone that I associate myself with. It's about the residents. It's about the community that you serve and making sure that they're getting their needs and services and wants as well.
Thank you. In your opinion, what is the most important issue facing our citizens?
This is kind of broad, but I would say like uncertainty about the future and what's to come. I think that uncertainty when it comes to potentially, affording their next meal, potentially, not having enough saved up for a large home project that fails, being able to access things that they're worried about or concerned about, health insurance, the rising cost of everything you need. Just being able to move forward to the next day and to know that they're, not gonna have to worry about losing their home or their apartment, and how they're gonna get to work the next day. I think that is a big concern.
Thank you. Therefore, I'm sorry, Start here with Mr. Jones. We're on question 9.
That's why I'm on to. Got a little technology. Question 9, how familiar and up to date on city issues are you currently?
I feel like I'm pretty familiar and fairly up to date. I've watched several council meetings and have since I've lived here, been to several. I've served on the Parks and Rec Commission for the city, which has kind of roped me into other areas and kind of crossed over from more than just parks as well. So I feel like I'm pretty up to date on what the city is currently tackling and challenged with.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Why do you want to be on council at this time?
It's something that I wanted to do for several years now, and was kind of looking for a time to do that when I felt comfortable and ready to do so. And when I saw this opening open up, I thought that it could potentially be a good opportunity for me. I feel like there was times in the past that I thought about it, but I didn't think I was qualified enough, old enough, had enough experience, etc., to have the position, to be a council member. But I feel like with my, growing responsibilities and work experience, being a several-year resident here and kind of seeing the day-to-day, well, from afar, at least operations, I feel like I have a good understanding, and I think that it was just a good time for something that I wanted to do for several years.
This is not my question, I'm gonna read it.
Sorry, we're reading each other's questions. We know that.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's an interesting question. What was the best day of your life?
Oh, that's a really
It's interesting.
interesting
Yes.
change of course here. Okay. The best day. Gosh. Honestly, I think so far it was probably the day that I closed on my house. That was something that I never thought I'd be able to do, had some encouragement and push to do so, and kind of was very unreal for like 6 months after that. But that has been a very drastic change.
Great, very good, thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
What are your opinions about the city's current zoning structure?
I guess I don't have a solid opinion one way or another. I feel like they'd have to be a little more well-versed in the zoning requirements to kind of have an opinion either way, I guess. So I guess I have to do more research into that to really make a decision. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. We're going to ask that you go back out. We're going to discuss the break, and we will get back with you.
Great. Thank you.
Saying it.
If that person's the one that walked out at 6:30, I'm not interested.
I'm sorry, I can't. Will you use your microphone, please? I can't.
The third applicant showed up at 6:30 and,
Oh, is
I'm not-
he here?
but he's here.
Oh, okay, well, come in, please.
I'm not really interested in interviewing them if they showed up a half hour late.
You came before morning, so I'm.
It was 6:30.
It was 6:30?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm interested in, we don't know why he was late.
I know Andrew gave a different time slots to come in too. I don't know if you guys.
I was gonna say, It's-
He did that with me as well.
that's not how they did it with me, that was, yeah, we all had to show up at the
I think
same
that's
time.
what we
Oh,
did
okay.
actually this year. Even though it's on Saturday.
But that I would know, give him different times.
Okay.
Yes, please do.
Everybody, yes, that's why I was like, why were we?
That's the one thing, like, I would-
How was it?
What?
How was it?
Yeah, no, I
just sit in the basement with like, there were 4 of us, like I interviewed, so the 3 of us had to sit down there.
It's kind of awkward, you know, when the roll-
Yeah.
I don't think I missed much.
You say what?
I don't think I missed much.
Like, so everyone can-
Let's see, well.
Exactly.
Hello.
There. Mr. Carr,
Mrs. please.
came for the interview. And we have a series of questions that we will ask you. And if you would answer them, to the best of your ability, we appreciate it.
I'm
All right,
excited.
thank you. We're gonna wait just a couple of minutes for Mayor Pro Tem. She took a short break. She'll be right back.
Outstanding.
I'm good.
You go for a burger.
Where's your favorite burger spot?
That room.
No, let me tell you, have you had Hamburger Mary's?
No.
Oh my gosh, I had one of theirs. That is a good, it's good. It was one of the best burgers I've ever had. I could say that.
Ale House has got a pretty fine burger too.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I like Ale House's french fries. They're good fries. I don't think I've had one. of those.
White Castle.
You have? You get 2 thumbs up.
They're not really pocket for one. We've never had it.
Hamburger Mary's was really good.
Favorite hamburgers, tacos. No. Did it work? Oh, the actor was working on it? Think worked on it?
It's just.
Excellent skills. Yes.
Too bad. You gonna make it good?
That's 4 at the table, so let's start and we will catch Mayor Pro Tem up. Mr. Jones Chance, would you read that?
Given this seat is being filled by vote of council rather than your constituents, how do you plan to represent Ward 3? That is, where do you find yourself on the spectrum between representing the opinions of your constituents versus representing your opinions? What do you do when those two are not congruent?
As far as my
constituents go, I would put that as basically the people in my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. And try to see where they align first, and where we are a majority of one opinion, represent that to the best of my ability. And if I am a minority in the opinions or opinion held, then definitely presenting their opinion over mine. I'm very neighborly, and I know all my neighbors.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem. Number 2.
Good evening.
Hello.
Given the short duration of this appointment and the typical learning curve for a new council member, how do you see your role differently than if this were a full term? And what will you focus on?
I would focus on bringing the opinions of my neighbors to call. It would best be served by listening and picking up what y'all are already doing. And being very open to being shown the ropes and how to function. Thank you.
Okay, how will you effectively communicate with constituents?
More than likely, face to face, talking with them, walking around. I find that to be the best way to communicate.
Mr. Wilcox.
Do you support access to safe abortion?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What do you believe are the 3 greatest strengths and also the 3 greatest areas in need of improvement for the city of Ypsilanti? First is the strength, 3 strengths, and then 3 areas for improvement.
3 greatest strengths would be community involvement, community recognition, and the beautiful diversity that we have in Ypsilanti.
The beautiful
Diversity,
diversity, thank you.
yeah, and an actual diversity, not the appearance of diversity. And our 3 greatest weaknesses as a community, the possibility of becoming a satellite of Ann Arbor. Budget is always going to be an issue. We could never have enough money to do as much as we'd like. And I'm gonna struggle to find a 3rd weakness. That's the 2 biggest ones. That's all I got. I don't have a 3rd one.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jones.
Explain your understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you see these interplay in Ypsilanti.
Inclusion would be making sure everybody's voice gets heard equally with as much volume as anybody else's. Equity is making sure we can all see over the fence regardless of where we started. And diversity has always had a big thing in my life. I struggled with my own identity for a very long time. I'm half Mexican, half what my dad is. And my mom couldn't speak English when she started school. And because of that, none of us were allowed to speak Spanish. We weren't taught Spanish. Watching that play out and watching the effect it had on myself, my cousins, produced a really interesting experience. And growing up in the town I did, it was predominantly white. And so coming to Ypsilanti and actually experiencing what feels like actual diversity has been beautiful. Seeing and experiencing and being welcomed into a variety of cultures, not just based on ethnicity, but also on different gender dynamics, different sexual orientation dynamics, different age dynamics, different capability dynamics. We're a pretty visible community here, and I like that a lot.
Thank you. What does public service mean to you?
Different things on different days. Some days it's walking my kiddo around with collapsible tongs, picking up litter. And sometimes it's just helping out my neighbors who are not able to help themselves to their abilities. And this would be an opportunity to view public service in a much different thing. In a way that I've, beyond voting, never really gotten to participate.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, sure. So, in your opinion, what is the most important issue facing our citizens?
In my opinion, it's maintaining our own distinct identity as a community. Ipsy's Ipsy for a reason, and it's gorgeous the way it is. We have some, pothole problems and things like that, but as far as its people go, we're amazing. We're awesome.
Thank you. Ms. Somerville.
All right, how familiar and up to date on city issues are you currently?
I think it depends on the issue. I'd say I'm pretty up to date on infrastructure issues because constantly driving and walking around. As far as financial issues, I don't know how informed I am. You don't know what you don't know. I know there are specific issues that bother me. And there are some issues that I love seeing the attention that they are getting. As far as issues that bother me, I really feel bad that Deja Vu isn't open yet. That's a wonderful, safe place that people could be working. Instead, they have to drive hours away to pursue their chosen career, which is not one that should be scoffed at, limited, or made unsafe.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Why do you want to be on council at this time?
Because my neighbors told me to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And Mr. Jones Chan.
What was the best day of your life?
Okay, I got lots of them. Okay, so today I had my kid at swimming school. It was her third class, and I cried in the pool because she really is starting to get it now. She's 2 and 4 months old. Her name is Mika. She's an absolute feral wild child, and I adore her for it. She can curl a 10-pound barbell with 2 hands. She can climb the 10-foot rock wall at Montebello Park all by herself. And today, I don't really make her follow the directions at the school. I just encourage her to do what she's doing. She knows what she needs to do. And if I can help steward that and not force what I think she needs to do on her at all times, then I think I'm doing a good job. And she's learning how to swim. She's doing it by herself. I'm just there to support her. The day she was born was pretty amazing. That was scary as can be, but it was wonderful. It was absolutely amazing. The day that I realized I was safe, that my brother could never hurt me again, even though I loved him to death. He died 4 years ago. And the day I realized that I was safe to embrace my own identity and start to transition, which has been an amazing journey. It's gone from identifying solely as a trans woman to my mom on this Mother's Day calling me her daughter, which my dad was the first one on board, which is not typical, I realize. But when she did that, it was an amazing shift that allowed me to embrace more of my masculine side and more of my masculine identity. And it has since shifted to a much more non-binary place. The day I sold $10,000 worth of swords that I made myself at a Georgia Renaissance Festival, when my boss was dying in the hospital of a pulmonary embolism, and it was just me and my one partner there, and I commanded a floor, and I couldn't assist each customer individually, so I basically just had to orate the whole day and espouse how much love and joy goes into what we do, and how we aren't selling trinkets, we're selling future family heirlooms. That was a beautiful day despite the pain. Eulogizing my great grandfather, who my earliest memory I have is him pushing me down and telling my dad to keep his half-breed son away from him, and giving him a beautiful eulogy, because I was able to reconnect with him in his late years and realize why he was the hateful person that he was. And it had nothing to do with me or anything regarding their family. Graduating high school because I didn't think I would. I was the first person in my family to graduate on time, and that was huge. I didn't get to leave school when the other seniors did. Like, I had to go to class every day up until commencement ceremony. I handed my last assignment in probably 2.5 hours before ceremony. Meeting my former wife. I knew the moment I saw her, I was going to marry her, and I told my dad that day. That was one of the happiest days of my life. I've got lots of happiest days. Realizing Ipsy is home. Looking around and feeling comfortable and safe here. That was a pretty big day. I was probably a month into living here. That was 9 years ago. I got lots of happy days.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for hearing.
That's a portion of your life with us. Thank you. And is that on you, Mr. Jones? Was that on you, Mr.? Okay.
What are your opinions about the city's current zoning structure?
I have no idea what the city's current zoning structure is. I'm sure y'all could catch me up on that fairly quickly. I'm a quick learner.
That was our last question for you.
Outstanding. How much do you all enjoy serving on council?
A lot of times it's great.
Yeah, most of the time.
Awesome. I have a friend Floki who comes to every council meeting, so they help keep me up to date.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right,
Yeah.
yes. Don't we just go back down?
Just stick around and
Yes. All
right.
I can do
Thank
that.
you. Hey, council.
I love the consistency in the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like, I don't know.
You say what?
I love the consistency in the answer to the last one.
Okay. Shall we go from A, start with A? down.
Sitting here on staff, I'm sorry. Just I would sit right here.
Just wait for motions.
Yeah.
I just made a motion.
Oh, yes, you're right.
And what motion were you going to make?
I was gonna make a motion for a nomination. I was gonna make a motion for a nomination.
Oh, okay.
Is that what we're doing?
Well, what I was hoping was, I was thinking that maybe we would, have some open discussion before, but, if you want to move on a name, that's,
I don't know, discussion, that's fine.
so what's council's, thoughts? Do you want to move straight to a nomination? Or would you like some discussion?
I guess we can see where it lands. Where a motion takes us.
You say what now?
So we can see where a motion takes us. Little discussion on the motion.
All right, Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to nominate Evan Sweet.
That's like that.
It's been moved and seconded to nominate Evan Sweet. Any comments, discussion?
Yeah, I'll start. After reviewing all the applications and going through the interview process tonight, I think Evan is the most prepared to come on board with us and kind of go full speed ahead based on his experience, both working as chair of Parks and Rec Commission, organizing his neighborhood, Facebook page and some of the events that they've had in his neighborhood, as well as his work in local government, I think is a huge asset. And it is a short appointment, so I think it's important for someone to be able to hit the ground running.
Any other comments, questions, discussion?
I think that's fair, actually, just given the time constraint.
I just want to thank all three of you for coming in. I mean, this is putting in, you put yourself on the line when you come in here. And I know it's not easy to sit in front of this group because I've done the same thing. So, I'd like to say, thank you for doing that. I appreciate the answers to the questions, placed. I like the consistency to the last question.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold that against anybody not knowing the zoning. And, I thought the answers were intriguing to a lot of questions, but I agree that, Ashanti has some experience there in Parks and Rec, and I look forward to having a conversation. If that's something said here, my experience with Evan is that he chairs a good meeting for the Parks and Rec and has a detailed understanding of how that works and how that fits in the city and how other cities fit. So, I will also support Evan.
Okay, any further discussion from council? Mr. Jones-Chan.
Steve, seeing as you're the liaison, do you have any concerns about Parks and Rec going forward? If we lose either of the.
I'm not good yet. I'm trying to balance those two things. I think Parks and Rec Commission will determine the chair as needed. And we have a couple of people that are coming on. That can't be the chair, but I think the people that are there, they're long enough that they'll be able to move forward. They have a great staff liaison to talk to. So they'll be.
Sorry for that. Yeah, I just wanted to thank all the applicants. I too also sat and not taken before. I've been interviewed for an appointment, and it's very scary and nerve wracking. So, thank you for participating and filling out the application.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I would thank you all so much. I know this has to be hard, and you don't know what's going to be asked, and, you know, like some of the questions, you have to pause and really think about it. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your responses and sharing with us. I really do. So
I too would like to, thank everyone for taking time to fill out the applications and for your resumes that were attached. I think you all would make an excellent, council member. And I really appreciate the fact that you would step forward for such a short time as it is. That you would be on council. I think each one of you would bring something unique to council. And in some ways, each one of you in some ways would make council better. That's each one of you would have something that would add to council and make us better. Thank you very much. And if you're not active right now on a commission, we'd like to invite you to become a part of a commission. We have any number of commission vacancies. It's almost every commission in the city has a vacancy. So if you would possibly look online and get a feel of what the commissions are working on and what they're about, and consider becoming a commission member. That would really be good. I think all of you would be excellent, an excellent commissioner, and also make an excellent council member. Thank you again for all of your time and even just your interest. Thank you. All right. Okay. If there's nothing else, would you call the roll, please?
Trustee Brown,
yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones Chance,
Yes.
and Mr. Wilcox.
Yes.
With one big, one absent, sorry, yes, you have. Wow.
It's okay. It's all right, Chelsea.
What's your name?
It's here.
Chelsea.
I know, it's okay. It's
All right. Okay, thank you. Mr. You have been voted on council. And as someone mentioned here, I think it was Mr. Jones Chance in questioning the Parks and Recreation. Unfortunately, cannot be on council and a commission at the same time. So you will step down as chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission. We do really want to say thank you for all the work that you have done on that commission. And Ms. Harris, you were a member before, so that's going to leave a vacancy if you would consider going back to Parks and Recreation. I remember from reading your material, you do have a degree in Parks and Recreation and Parks. I think the degree is. So if you would consider that, and as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Crown, if you would really consider one of the other commissioners, I think commissions, I think you'd make a good commissioner.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah, so you stepped out now, so you gotta keep going, you can't go back. So, all right, thank you all very much. Thank you for your time before. Thank you for your time that you have extended to us this evening. The next meeting will be on July the 12th, which is actually next Tuesday. So you will be sworn in at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Sweet. So, and our meetings start at 7 o'clock. So thank you to all three of you, and we appreciate you. I appreciate what you had to say about Ypsilanti, how you feel about the city. You all have very good things to say. And I think all three of you pretty much said that the greatest strength in the city is the people here. And I truly believe that we have really good people here in the city, and they are truly our greatest strength. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Sweet. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. Thank you. I'm moving too fast. Do we have any public comment present or online? No one has their hand raised. No.
Lucas doesn't have comments? I can see, can't even see it. Okay.
Can't see the second one. It's
I-
probably up above it.
I can't read it. I can see two lines of it. Okay, so no public comment, no one has any comment, so. I entertain a motion.
Support.
All right, second that we adjourn. So once again, thank you for coming and we are adjourned.